You got the right mic?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
All right. What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to another edition of Green with Envy here on the 617 podcast, proudly brought to you by Crowworthy. As always, this is your boy Will. We are checking in and joining me as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of the podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis.
What's good, baby? Let's get it. Let's get after this pod.
Manifesting energy into this podcast. You know, Greg and I talked over the last couple of days about how we were going to handle, what this last week has been with the Celtics. Because let's just be 100% real with it. We do not fucking want to talk about this team right now. Like that's just the brutal, honest truth with everybody right now.
Yeah, we're awful. That was the worst 3-game stretch I remember, and I don't even know how long. Like maybe since the Kyrie team lost 4 straight to the Bucks in the playoffs, right? Like maybe that. This is bleak, man. This is very bleak.
Yeah, it's just really tough to look at. It's so consistently inconsistent that it's mind numbing at this point. I think I saw something that over the last just about 100 games, we were like 49-49 or something. We just are the definition of an average team. And it's so frustrating because you look at it and, and I know Jalen's hurt right now, but it's really hard to use that as an excuse when you run into the Clippers who don't have Paul George, haven't had Kawhi Leonard all season, and you're getting beat by, Brandon Boston, Terrence Mann, and Mook Morris. And then you go over to Phoenix, who, they're one of the best teams in the league, no Devin Booker, and then the day of the game, DeAndre Ayton's out, so they're missing 2 out of their own big 3 that they have. So even when, even the silver linings that were once
worked
there,
by JaVale McGee and Campaign, like that's what happened. We got worked by them.
Like, listen to the names that we just rattled off. Those are the names that are putting the Celtics in body bags in a month that only gets tougher. They got the Celtics upcoming week, Bucks and Warriors, followed by the Knicks. The Knicks actually are like a saving grace because they're struggling just as bad as we are. So that's the game that I'm looking for. Like it's a must-win game at this point because I don't know how I can look at our team right now and say I have any hope that we're going to take down the Bucks and Warriors, even though that both of those games are at home.
Yeah, I think we need to win this game against the Bucks. Like it's a must-win game. We can't go 2 games under 500. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Jalen is back because I think the best
that actually
case,
just came out. He will be back tomorrow night.
Hell yeah,
or tonight, right, depending on when you're listening to this.
Breaking news on Green with Envy.
There we go. Breaking news. We'll have to get some sound effects in here. But yeah, Jalen has been ruled in for tomorrow night. Josh Richardson's still out with I don't know if he has COVID or he's in the whatever they're calling health and safety. I don't really know if that means people actually have it. Who knows? LeBron came back in 2 days after he took 9 million tests, and apparently it was a false positive or whatever. So it looks like pretty much back to full strength. I mean, then again, Jalen's last time coming back, that hamstring, I mean, it's just the way hamstrings work. They linger. So we'll see what version we get of Jalen.
Linger. Yeah, well, I think that what I would do if I were the Celtics, I would go all in on this Bucks game because it's on a Monday, right? It's tomorrow. No, yeah, it's on a Monday. And then we don't play until Friday. Is that true?
Yeah, so it's one of the rare 3-day stretches that we have off. And I think that was something that and it actually makes me a little surprised that they're not just waiting till Friday and just being overly cautious. I mean, maybe it's a sense of desperation, but
because you can't play, I don't think you can play Jalen on a back-to-back this week. So I think what you do is you play him against the Bucks. You give him 3 days, maybe 4. Maybe you sit him against the Warriors and bring him back against the Knicks because Celtics-Knicks is more important right now. Or you play the Warriors, sit the
Knicks, whatever.
Yeah, but I don't think you don't want him playing in a back-to-back game. You give him that extra day off. I think it just makes sense to play him against the Knicks versus the Warriors because that's a division game and that's more important for the Celtics long term. So I think that's what you would imagine. I would imagine that's what they do with JB. It's going to be great to see him back. All the narratives of, should the Celtics move on from Jaylen Brown? Look at Jason Tatum, what he's doing without Jaylen Brown. We can kind of put those to rest. The team just isn't very good. It doesn't matter who's on the floor. The team's just not very good. So with JB back, hopefully we can get, a little spark, light the fire a little bit, play with some energy back at home. That West Coast trip just completely destroyed us. That's about as bad of a West Coast trip as you can have. The only team that we beat was Portland, and everyone's beating Portland right now. So I don't even know what you can even say about that. We don't want to spend too long, making everybody sad talking about that shitty West Coast trip. So let's get into these fake trades, man, because like we could talk about the West Coast trip for an hour and a half if we wanted to, but I don't really want to do that.
So here's the deal for today. So like we just laid out, we don't really want to go back in time and take a look because honestly, you could put up a dartboard and we could just start like picking out the different issues. We've talked about them all. We know what they are. Like Greg said, we're just not a very good team right now. So rather than sit here and talk about that for 30 or 40 minutes, we're going to try and fix some of these problems today. And obviously throughout this week, there's been multiple reports, whether it's the Pacers, the Blazers, the team you mentioned, that have been, mixed in these. The rumor mill is open for business right now. Trade season will probably really start to kick off and heat up here in the next couple of days. December 15th, a lot of the recently signed guys from the offseason will then be eligible for trade. So, we're going to do what we do. We're going to do podcasting 101. We're to come up with some fake trades here. So Greg and I each got 3 fake trades, one of which is going to involve Ben Simmons. Don't turn it off. I know you're about to turn it off. Do not turn us off. We're going to find a way to try and see what this Ben Simmons deal could look like. There was a report that they are looking at, potential 3-team deal. So we're going to look at a 3-way deal that involves Ben Simmons. We're going to give you our takes on that. And at the very end, we're gonna have a little fun. We're gonna do a little draft where we're a little worried about these guys in green. So we don't want to change the name Green with Envy. It's a pretty sick name. So we're going to think of other things that have to do with the color green that we can pivot this podcast to. Worst case scenario. We're not saying we're doing it, but worst case scenario, we're going to talk it out. You guys let us know what you think. We'll hit that at the end. But for now, let's get into these trades, Greg. Do you want to start with Simmons, end with Simmons, or where do you want to go first?
I don't want to start with Simmons because I don't want people to completely turn the pot off.
Yeah.
And so this first trade, this is one that I was going to pitch on the Celtics blog, a 3-man weave that we did the other day, but didn't have time to do it. So this one is with the Portland Trailblazers. Okay. And the Boston Celtics would be sending out Aaron Nesmith, Romeo Langford, Al Horford, 2 future firsts and 2 future pick swaps. So I would imagine it's 2022 unprotected, 2024 top 5 protected, 2023 pick swap, 2025 pick swap for CJ McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic. So once again, that's Nesmith, Romeo, Horford, and 4 picks for CJ McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic. So before I get into my thoughts, just initial reaction to that trade.
You.
Okay. Tell me why.
Honestly, as you were going through that list and we got to 4 picks being involved, I was like, okay, this is a Dame Lillard trade. And when you came up with the name CJ McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic, I mean, no, that's not for me. I mean, Nurkic, correct me if I'm wrong, Nurkic is on an expiring deal, I believe, as well. So correct. There is the risk of him leaving as part of it. Especially listening to, Kevin O'Connor had a great Into the Void series that he does. And he had one on the Blazers and where they're going, what they're doing, was talking about, Nurkic's, since his injuries over the last couple of years, that while he's their best defensive option, even his defensive impact has started to wane a little bit. So even him at his peak value, that makes me worry a little bit. And then with CJ, and now this is kind of, separate from whatever's going on with CJ right now with that collapsed lung. I don't really know what the details are about, how long-term of an injury that is or what's going on. I've been a CJ proponent. I've said the CJ for Ben deal for months is where I think that ultimately that path is going to lead. Maybe that injury changes it. We'll see. But, I like CJ, but $30 million for CJ McCollum, I talked about this on Twitter the other day. I'm not super behind the Brad Beal, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. If there's a way to make that work in the future, I just think there's some fit problems, and it's not quite at that overwhelming talent level where it doesn't matter. And I think CJ certainly, he's a poor man's Bradley Beal, smaller too. And so for me, that's just, I would pass on that, but I'm curious to hear your reasoning behind it.
Well, for me, let's start from the Blazers, because I feel like some people might be like, oh, the Blazers never do that. Aaron E. Smith hasn't done anything. Romeo hasn't done anything. Al Horford is 36 years old.
4 picks is why they do it.
Yeah, 4 picks is why they do it. Exactly. And to me, this is part of a complete fire sale situation, right, in which they all started trading Dame Lillard. I get your thinking that, yeah, maybe you want to have Dame instead of CJ. I think that's obvious. Just in a vacuum, Dame's a much better player than CJ. I think if you're going after Dame, you're just getting Dame. You're not getting Nurkic. And Nurkic hasn't had a great season, but I still think Nurkic would by far be the best center on the Celtics. Like, I think
Yeah,
he's better
I
than
still
Al
agree with that.
Horford. I think he's better than Robert Williams. In this scenario, you get to keep Robert Williams. CJ is signed, I think, for 2 more years after this, if I'm right. And then Nurkic isn't expiring. So I think that what's kind of cool with this is you kind of get to make a decision on Nurkic, right? If he plays really well, maybe he's a guy that's in that Sabonis range around 18 million a year. I don't think Nurkic is going to command a max contract, right?
No.
So you're not really going to have to pay him too much money. You're selling high on Al Horford, which I think is something that the Celtics probably should do if they're being honest with themselves about what this team is. You should probably try and move on from Al. As much as I've loved having Al back, I think that it's probably a good decision to sell high on that asset. And then Nesmith and Langford, I mean, you can make the argument maybe you want to move off of Josh Richardson in January so that you can kind of allow those guys to potentially up their trade value with more playing time. Who knows, man? But I think that with CJ, right, in this deal, you don't give up Marcus Smart. So I think Smart, CJ McCollum, the Jays, Josh Richardson, Grant, Lob, and Nurkic is a pretty solid core right there. I think in this scenario, you probably also have to move off of Schroeder and maybe try and recoup some assets. So I know you're worried about giving up those 4 picks. So maybe you can get a first round pick for Dennis Schroeder. So that's a possibility. You get one of those picks back. So really it's 3 picks instead of 4. And then so maybe Schroeder could go to, say, like the Nuggets or something, or some team that just needs a punch that has a playoff chance waiting for some guy to get back. Yeah. I don't know what the Nuggets, that was just a kind of random team I just threw out
there. I think it's the right thinking, though, because I think with Schroeder, like, if this season, for me, I think Schroeder's a guy that, and I do think if you add that to the plan, like, I do think that helps you kind of reset those draft picks, that you're not completely barren if you can go do that. Because I do think that there's going to be an opportunity if the Celtics really decide, and I think with Schroeder, if there was a big move like this, or we get right up to the deadline, so it's like, listen, this just ain't happening. We know Schroeder's not coming back. I absolutely think a team like Denver is who the Celtics are going to be calling, trying to pit 2 teams against them and maybe get 1, if not 2 first-round picks for a guy in Schroeder who's likely going to walk at the end of the season.
Exactly. Right. And to me, also, McCollum is a great insurance in case Jalen just doesn't get healthy this year. So I think having CJ there would I think he'd actually pair pretty well with Jason Tatum. As you said, he's kind of a poor man's Brad Beal, but you have him locked on the same contract length as the Jays. So that's when his deal is expiring, when Tatum has that option the following year, which he won't pick up. Right. So Nurkic, that contract situation is a little scary.
Yeah.
But acquiring CJ with the potential of keeping Nurk on a cheaper than expected deal might actually be too hard to pass, because you're really getting an opportunity to have a direct comparison of Robert Williams versus Nurkic, right? Because as we've said before, we're on the Jays contract. So Robert Williams maybe long-term with that contract number is better. But if the talent upgrade of getting Nurk with playing with the Jays, and who knows, man, maybe Nurk just like makes a lot of sense with Jason Tatum, or maybe he develops a great chemistry with Jaylen Brown. You never know. And I think in a vacuum, he's far more talented than Robert Williams is on the offensive end, especially. So, that's my first trade. I get the pushback on it, including 4 picks for CJ McCollum in a vacuum is not what you want to do. But I think Nurkic, you're taking a risk on Nurkic potentially being a guy that you want to keep long term. So yeah, I'd be open to amending that as well.
No. I think that's definitely, I think it's a trade for the Blazers that they, if they decide to tear it down, they'd be very interested in that trade, in my opinion. So I think it's definitely of the right mindset of how to make this team, like not giving up on this team yet, saying that we're still taking the core of what we have and building it. So I like where your head's at on that. Let me jump into my first trade that I have here, and I'll say this. So it's going to be our trade partner for this one is going to be the Sacramento Kings. I have a guy that I prefer, but I couldn't find a value that I thought made sense on both ends. So I didn't want to go that route. So this trade is going to be the Celtics in this one. We'll send out Josh Richardson, Juancho, Aaron Nesmith, and a 2024 lottery protected first round pick. And in return, they will receive Buddy Hield. End of deal.
Okay, so Richardson, Nesmith, Juancho, and a 2024 lottery protected pick for Buddy Hield.
Yeah, you can argue on the protections. We'll get that sorted out, but it's a first round pick going the other way.
Yeah, I mean, what is the biggest issue with this team? The biggest issue with this team is we don't have shooting, and Buddy Hield is one of the best shooters in the league. So I get it. I get the thinking. I think Buddy Hield is one of those guys that when you look at how other teams' fan bases talks about players, people don't like Buddy Hield,
Yeah.
right? So the Kings people don't like Buddy Hield. So like you got to trust the fan bases that are watching a guy night in, night out, right? And they just don't think he's very good. Obviously, he's a good shooter, but I don't think he necessarily has the defensive chops, nor does he have like the team first mentality. I know there was issues with him and Bogdanovich back in the day. Who should be playing over who. I like Buddy Hield. Every time I've seen him play, I thought that he was a guy that might look good in green. I don't necessarily know that he would look good next to the Jays and look good with Ime. Like, who knows, man? Maybe Ime doesn't even play him because he doesn't know how to play defense.
Yeah.
Like, Ime is just the worst. So I think I would probably do that deal just because I want people that actually fit skill sets for what basketball in 2021 looks like. So give me Buddy Hield, man. Yeah, I'm down with that.
Yeah, and the way that I'm thinking of it is, it's selling. The Kings would be selling a little bit low, but like you said, it feels like they're down on him. So I feel like this year he's only shooting 35% from three, but for his career, he's absolutely a 40% sniper. Always cracks me up when I look at his field goal attempt breakdown. He takes a little under 14 shots a game, and 10 of them are threes. Always cracks me up that he doubles up, more than doubles up his field goal attempts from 2 versus 3. But the guy who I would have preferred to put in here is Harrison Barnes. But I couldn't find the right point that I thought we would ever be able to get to, because I feel like, we talked about, I didn't put Domantas Sabonis in any of my trades. We kind of talked about him on the Celtics blog podcast, the 3-man weave with Adam Taylor the other day. And I was so mad at myself afterwards, Greg. I meant to say this, and Zach Lowe freaking said it the next day on his podcast. And I was so mad at myself because I had said it in my head. I'd written it in my notes, but I didn't say it on the podcast. Is look at the Sabonis price like it's similar to Vucevic last year, which was a young, promising player and two first round picks. And I think part of my Sabonis deal was like, it was Lob and a first round pick, and I did Nesmith instead of a second first round pick. So it's, Nesmith Romeo or another first round pick. And that's kind of the Sabonis lane of what I think would be like an appropriate value. Harrison Barnes, I feel like, is just like value wise, maybe a click below that. And I don't want to give up 2 first round picks for Harrison Barnes. I'm okay like with this deal. I'd prefer it to be for Harrison Barnes, but I don't think it's going to be enough, because there's going to be a lot of people that if Harrison Barnes is available, people are going to go try and get him. Buddy Hield feels like there might not be the same amount of people going after him. So if I can only give up a first round pick, Aaron Nesmith, and then throw Josh Richardson in for kind of, contract purposes, as well as like he's going to need playing time if we're going to make Ime play him so he gets some shooting on there. So he just kind of slides into the Josh Richardson minutes. This is one that I would feel comfortable with, to your point of getting a 2021 very valuable skill set of shooting, which we desperately need, and getting that onto the team. So I would like I said, I prefer Harrison Barnes, but Buddy Hield, I would be happy to move forward with Buddy Hield in the fold.
I'm in. I like it. I think, when we had our conversation with Brendan Nunez last year, who runs a great pod for Blue Wire Pods called King's Pulse, we talked about Aaron Nesmith and Buddy Hield, and I know that I think the Celtics fans, best case scenario, Aaron Nesmith turns into Buddy Hield, so they get a chance to.
You've even said
do that
stroke
again.
Looks kind of similar, right?
They do. They have very similar stroke. Nesmith just doesn't go in as much.
Yeah. which is kind of an issue when you're labeled a shooter. Yeah. All right, let me go to my next trade here. We'll go to me, then we'll go back to you. So the next one, this is a real simple one. This is kind of like small tinkering on the fringes. I'm going to be trading with the San Antonio Spurs. So with the Spurs, I'm going to get my guy Dougie McBuckets. I've been liking me some McBuckets here. I'm still trying to fix our shooting problem. We're going to give up a 2025 first round pick in Peyton Pritchard. We're going to use one of our TPEs, and we're going to go ahead and get Doug McDermott. He's on a 3-year deal, so this year plus 2 more, 13.7. Not horrible. Not maybe a little much. Maybe you prefer him at like 10, but what are you going to do? Shooting's at a premium. He's not at the Bertans. He's not at the Joe Harris levels. A couple million less than that. So this is a guy that can help solve some problems now. You can use him into the future. as well as, if you need to trade, he's a tradable contract as well. If you need to pile it together for something bigger, he's going to have that value because he is a shooter. And then for the Spurs, I'm kind of picturing at some point they're going to move some, whether it's White or Murray. They have kind of too many, point guards. So I feel like Peyton Pritchard for them is going to be a guy. They have Bryn Forbes right now. And I feel like Peyton Pritchard could be kind of just a younger Bryn Forbes that's more on their timeline with their team. And they can kind of keep it moving with that. And they get the first round pick, obviously, for, even though they're hanging around the play-in, they're a team that's going to want to build up more assets long term. So I think that's kind of the appeal of it on their side.
Yeah, I'd take McDermott in a heartbeat. I think the only pushback would be luxury tax implications bringing on that contract. I don't know what they would be, but I would imagine because there's already talk of getting rid of Juancho to stay under the tax, that's just going to make our tax bill insane. So I think there would need to be another move to get rid of one of those contracts that's also in that $13 million range, like a Josh Richardson might need to go out in a separate deal or something like that, just for kind of like pennies on the dollar. So I mean, I like it, man. McDermott, same reasoning. I liked it with Buddy Hield. I think the Celtics need shooters. I know you've been big on getting McDermott to the Celtics, and he's one of those guys that if he's on the court, he has gravity wherever he goes. The defense has to give him an extra step, might open up some driving lanes. He's really good at shooting off the dribble. He's great at attacking off of curls. If someone's in a lock and trail, he doesn't always come off shooting. He can attack the basket off of that. And then, I mean, dude, if we can lock in another shooter, as you said, for the next couple of years at $13 million, that's about as good as it gets right there. So, these are the types of moves that are probably realistic for the Boston Celtics right now, are the Doug McDermott types. And if you can, Peyton Pritchard, probably not going to work out long term for him. I would love for Peyton Pritchard to have a great time with the Boston Celtics, have a great career at the Boston Celtics. I think that's a lot to ask at this point. And then that first round pick, man, I mean, it's not like we're good at using those mid first round picks anyway. So yeah, get rid of it.
Yep. Yeah. So that's one. That's why I really wanted to try and do one that was realistic. And that was, to your point, this is the one that I think even if it's not this exact setup, it's going to be a similar setup. If there's a move that's like on the fringes to help this year, it would be some type of setup like this, as opposed to some of these grander visions that we're going to be talking about today and in the future.
All right. And my second pick, I'm going to actually include Domantas Sabonis in this trade.
Okay.
We're going to be giving up Romeo Langford, who's going to go back to Indiana. He played his college ball at Indiana. Robert Williams, who we would all hate to see go. Josh Richardson, and a unprotected 2022 first round pick. Or it could be 2024. Whatever year they want. An unprotected pick, which is a lot at this point. So, for the Pacers, why do they do this? They get Romeo back in Indiana. I have friends in Indiana that love IU basketball. They all loved Romeo while he was there, even though he didn't play to his potential. He's shown some promise this year. I think he might thrive in a bigger role. If they'd prefer the more team-controlled young player, it'd be easy to just say, hey, you want Nesmith instead? So there's no worries there if they don't want Romeo. And then they get one of the most promising young bigs on a super team-friendly contract in Robert Williams, man. Robert Williams, that contract was one of the smartest moves we could have done. Getting Robert Williams at 4 years, $11 million or whatever it ended up being. I said at the time, if he stays healthy, it's going to be like a poor man's version of what Steph Curry ended up being for the Warriors back in the day when he got signed to a very team-friendly deal because of his ankles. Right. So if teams look at Robert Williams and they say, wow, man, this guy's shown a ton of promise and we have him at $11 million for the next 4 years, like, even if he doesn't work out for us, as long as he stays healthy, we'll be able to move that. And if he reaches another level, then like we could double the price for Robert Williams if we really wanted to. And then Josh Richardson, he's the guy that they'd be very easily able to flip because he's shown that he can still play. I think his style might work in Indiana, and just like his hard nose, the fans, he probably endear himself to the fans. From the only thing about that is he didn't really work out, playing under Carlisle and Dallas. But maybe that was more of a Luka thing. In terms of why the Celtics would do it, I think it's obvious, man. Like Sabonis, team-friendly deal, as you've mentioned, 3 years, $18 million a year, immediately improves the offense, provides that theoretical third star. You're selling high on two injury-prone young players in Romeo and Lob. You're selling high on a reclamation project in Josh Richardson. And then your core is Smart, the Jays, and Sabonis, which is a pretty good spot to start. Maybe you see Sabonis and Tatum Love playing together. Maybe this makes the Jalen deal more palatable if we end up being like, oh, man, like, yeah, Jason Tatum and Sabonis, they complement each other. It's very clear now that Tatum and Brown like weren't complimenting each other, but these two guys do. So maybe if that's ends up happening, we can at least feel better about moving on from Jalen, though nobody wants to. So yeah, this is a talent play for me. Get Sabonis on a good deal, sell high on some assets.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big call for Sabonis is it's a talent play. I don't know. He doesn't bring you shoot, doesn't fix the shooting problem, but he does help with the creation, the facilitation, the having, another guy that can go get you a bucket. We don't really have too much low post scoring right now, which is something that isn't necessarily talked about quite as much. That's certainly something that he would bring to the table. I know the statistics say we're a good rebounding team, but if you watch those LA games, you watch any of the West Coast games, didn't really feel like it. So, Sabonis comes in. He's a guy who's averaged 12 rebounds a game for the last couple of years. So, I do think the Sabonis play is one the Celtics should be looking at. And I think the setup a year deal was kind of along the lines of that Vucevic deal where Rob Williams is kind of the main young guy you're looking at. You get a first round pick. And then I think it could be Romeo Neesmith or a pick is kind of like dealer's choice. You get one out of these three. We can negotiate from there. But I think that should be what is the Sabonis price and what I would feel comfortable kind of giving up. And like you said, the Sabonis insurance, because, I feel like he's casting him as your best player or second best player may be, a bridge too far. But if he's your third best player, you're in pretty good shape with a guy like that. Even though he may have some flaws on the defensive end, his offensive upside is something that I think this team could really utilize. So I like the deal that you have going there. I think it's one that, that could work. And I was trying to think of, I think once again, it's from the Low Post. I forget who his guest was, but they touched on the Celtics briefly, and we're talking about, what value, if any, do some of these young guys have? Talking about Romeo, not Rob, but Romeo, Neesmith, Grant, Peyton Pritchard. And it was like, there's a bunch of guys that are just kind of blah, but like they did say if we had to rank them, Neesmith probably holds the most value across the league. So, maybe Neesmith is enough instead of giving up another first round pick if that's a guy that they really like. But I like where your head's at with that deal. I'm on board with the reasoning. If the Pacers are doing this, I think for them it's probably part of like a bigger plan to kind of revamp their roster and find something else that works for them. So I think there's appeal on both sides. It really just depends on what the Pacers' actual plan is, though.
Definitely. All right, and now it's time for the trades that maybe 25% of Boston Celtics fans would want to do, and that is getting Ben Simmons to the Boston Celtics. And I tried my best to keep Jaylen Brown out of this deal. I don't know if you did, but I think for people to,
I tried and I somehow managed it. So we'll see. We'll see. Is he in yours?
He's not in mine.
Okay, so we both, let's see how closely similar these trades are. We did not run these by each other, so I'm gonna start dying laughing if we ended up with like a very similar style of trade, just doing backflips to try and like not include Jaylen Brown in this.
Okay, so I have a 3-team deal. It is with the Spurs, the Sixers, and the Celtics. Okay, the San Antonio Spurs in this deal get Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, Josh Richardson, Matisse Thybulle. The Sixers get DeJounte Murray, Doug McDermott, and 3 Celtics picks. The Celtics get Ben Simmons and Bryn Forbes. I haven't 100% checked all the salary implications of everything, but I think that it works. It would just have to be done in January because Smart, Williams, and Richardson all cannot be traded until January. So once again, that is the Spurs get Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, Josh Richardson, Matisse Thybulle. If you want to throw a pick in there, you can. Sixers get DeJounte Murray, Doug McDermott, and 3 Celtics picks. The Boston Celtics get Ben Simmons and Bryn Forbes. Your thoughts?
I'm intrigued. I think so. So give me who do the Sixers get one more time? Tell me who
they get.
Who
DeJounte Murray and Doug McDermott and 3 Celtics picks.
And 3 Celtics picks. Okay. So that's an interesting one because I think Daryl Morey. I don't know if he was quoted or whatever. It was a report that came out that he's looking for a top 30 guy, and I think DeJounte Murray probably falls outside of that. But he's not
Yeah.
it's not a huge gap. He's maybe in the 40s. I don't know. It's really hard to go through and rank the top 50 NBA players and find out where they are. So they miss on that, but the 3 picks kind of lines up with. If you believe what they were asking from the Blazers about CJ McCollum, it was like CJ plus like 6 picks, which then they were never going to get, 3 picks and 3 pick swaps, but they're going to start there and hopefully get down to, 3 or 4 picks. So getting 3 picks plus DeJounte plus Doug McDermott, that because the biggest thing for me with the Sixers is I feel like they're going to make a move, even though Morey said he'll wait it out 4 years, which feels like bullshit. You have Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is so effing good, and he's so dominant. The only players in this league that I feel like you can really label as dominant are him and Giannis when they're at their best. They're the only 2 guys that you can say that guy is dominant, and if they have one of their nights, it doesn't really matter. The Sixers roster it's okay, it's solid, but like he's keeping them above like a team like us right now. You know what I mean? Mostly by himself, and he's missed several. He missed a couple weeks with COVID. So you take out that horrible win-loss record, and they're right in the mix of it in the top of the East. So I feel like they can't waste it, and I kind of like this deal. I think there's appeal to it on all sides. Who do the Spurs get again? Remind me.
The Spurs get Marcus Smart, Robert Williams,
Okay.
Josh Richardson, and Matisse Thybulle.
Okay.
So, for me, I was thinking, okay, who's our best young asset? Obviously, it's Robert Williams, right? The Sixers don't need Robert Williams. So you kind of need to facilitate that third team in there. And you also need to think about, at what point are the Spurs just like, hey, we want Ben Simmons? Why do we even need the Celtics in here?
Yeah.
So that's where I think the Celtics 3 picks come into play, because then the Spurs don't have to give up any draft capital, right? And they're getting a guy that would probably work well under Greg Popovich and Marcus Smart. I feel like Josh Richardson would work well, and also those 2 guys are very easy to then flip if they wanted to. I think Thybulle would work well under Popovich, and then Robert Williams. Dude, we've talked about it before. He's just such a good contract to have at such a young age. You're getting guys that would still play hard within the Spurs system. We've heard for months, maybe even a year now, that DeJounte Murray probably won't be staying long-term in San Antonio. Doug McDermott, I think for the Sixers point of view, getting him is like the fit of getting Doug McDermott onto a team with Joel Embiid. When you saw what Joel Embiid used to be able to do with JJ Redick, I think they're very, very similar players just in terms of the way they move off of screens and everything like that. So even though they're not getting that top 30 guy, I think Murray plus McDermott is enough to be like, ooh, we get one of the best defensive point guards in the league, and then we get a great shooter to space the floor for Embiid. I think that's pretty great. So I think the Spurs are probably the team that would say no in this scenario, if I had to guess, depending on how they feel about having Smart and Richardson. And you could also, talk yourself into maybe instead of Thybulle, they get Danny Green back or something like that. If Danny Green wants to go back to San Antonio.
No, it's got a good framework, and I'm looking at my trade now too, and I think it's the framework's there. You can insert player X, you find a similar salary, maybe one guy shifts, but as long as there's a reason for each team to kind of be interested, that's where you got to start from. So I think mission accomplished. I think that's a reasonable trade right there. I really do. So I think there's something to work from. I think the biggest holdup, it's gonna be the biggest holdup in my deal as well, is that I think Morey wants a name brand guy that he wants the guy in the trade. So Ben Simmons is going out. He wants a name brand back. So that, let me transition into mine, because I think it's a relatively similar setup. So I have the Kings involved with this.
Okay. All right.
So in this scenario, the Kings will get Ben Simmons, Juancho Hernan-Gomez, and Isaiah Joe. The 76ers are going to get Dennis Schroeder, Marcus Smart, Buddy Hield, and 3 picks. The Celtics get De'Aaron Fox.
One more time.
So the Celtics are going to get De'Aaron Fox. Easy. 76ers are going to get Dennis Schroeder, Marcus Smart, Buddy Hield, and 3 first-round picks from the Celtics. And then the Kings are going to get Ben Simmons, Juancho, and Isaiah Joe.
Okay. Why? I guess my question is, why don't we get Simmons?
We prefer Fox. That's what I'm going. I'm going with it. The Celtics prefer to have Fox over Simmons.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just think that in terms of style of play, I don't think Fox is going to fit well. I think he's a little too score first. I think he has the potential to be a more facilitated point guard, but I think Ben Simmons is like the guy that, like, if you could draw him up, I think he's probably the best guy to have next to Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. He's huge. He can defend. He literally doesn't want to shoot, so he can just he can get them all the shots that they want. De'Aaron Fox, I think you'd probably run into some more fit issues. I love De'Aaron Fox. I just don't. He's one of those guys that I'm just like, as much as I love the talent, I just don't think he's going to fit. Like I would probably rather make a smaller deal for like a Rubio type than go all in on Fox like that, because so we're giving up Schroeder, Marcus Smart.
Really, Schroeder, Smart, and 3 picks is pretty much what the Celtics are giving up.
Yeah, and I think that's too much for Fox. Maybe 2 picks. The third pick.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I have 2 picks in here, but I said 3 picks because then I was thinking about it, like from same issue that I think Morey's going to have is like, all right, if I'm not getting my, bright, shiny star to come back for Simmons, I need a shit ton of picks. And so I feel like, so that's why, so I have 2 in here, what I'm looking at on my screen, but then I said 3 just because as you were talking through your trade, I just feel like that's the only way Morey's going to be like, okay, I'll take the, quantity over the top tier quality. So in this, he gets Buddy Hield, Marcus Smart, Dennis Schroeder. I could see Schroeder and Embiid playing well off each other with some type of like pick and roll combo with Schroeder's speed. Obviously you add Marcus for some reinforcement on that defense as you lose Simmons. So now you have Marcus on the perimeter to go with Embiid on the interior, and you have still Thibault. They didn't give up Thibault in this deal. And then you have Buddy Hield and Seth to kind of like spread the floor, but they're shooting. And so you leave that lane open then for that Schroeder Embiid combo, and then Tobias Harris is doing whatever Tobias Harris does.
Yeah, I think one of those picks just needs to come from the Kings.
So that was
Fox and Hield. I think one of those picks needs to come from the Kings because they're getting the best player in the deal and getting
the best player. But they were giving up. So essentially for them, they were giving up De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield to ultimately get Ben Simmons, which
that's not enough.
You don't think that's enough for Ben Simmons?
No.
Okay, interesting. I feel like, I think I would agree with you a couple months ago. I think now, just because of the way of his market value, not necessarily the player, like certainly the player, I agree with you. But I think for his value, I think I just don't. I mean, it seems so low. Who knows? Because it's just like it's one thing when he was actually playing and just not happy. And it's like, okay, but he's just like he's not even there, so I don't even know what to judge him on.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking back to the deal we just postulated with DeJounte Murray, who's pretty much on the same level as De'Aaron Fox at this point. I think De'Aaron Fox, because he has the higher pedigree, people would say, oh no, Fox is way better than Murray, but like, is he? I don't know. And then it's Hield versus McDermott, like who's actually better? Not sure.
Yeah.
So like if the Celtics were giving up the 3 picks in that last, I think the Kings, like one of those picks or 2 picks need to come from the Kings, because if it's just in a vacuum, Fox, Hield, 2 picks for Ben Simmons, I think the Sixers say yes. So I think that's too much to ask the Celtics to give up 3 picks. I think just one of them or 2 of them have to come from the Kings.
Okay, so we're haggling over picks. So we're at least at a spot here where it could be, and really this was me trying to challenge myself to have a 3-team deal where the Celtics don't get Simmons, but they're involved. I was trying to figure out a way
I like to have him.
And I know you like De'Aaron Fox. So that's why I was, okay, this actually somehow I got this to work. I don't, who knows? But it's an interesting exercise, especially with all these rumors going around. And let's just be honest, it's way more fun than talking about all of the shit that's wrong with the team in reality.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm recording a pod with Adam later for Celtics blog. And like, I'm just like, dude, so we're doing the progress reports on Sundays. There's like, it's just going to be Fs. Like if that's what this pod was, it would just be straight Fs all across the board.
Well, with that, let's have a little fun here, man. Well, we've been having fun this whole podcast, but let's just say nothing changes and we decide, man, we gotta find a new lane. We gotta find a new lane to thrive in right now. Green with envy, Green and the Celtics just not working out. What else can we keep the name Green with envy, but make this podcast about friendships and blank? Basketball and friendships. It can be maybe a different type. We'll see. But we're gonna have a little quick snake draft here for you, and then we want you guys to let us know if we were to ever pivot which we won't. Don't worry. We're gonna stick with the Celtics. We're not, we're not gonna abandon them. But just in case, let us know what you think. Greg, I'm gonna give you the first pick here.
Okay. I'm gonna go with, we could do an entire podcast on just the guys in the NBA whose last name is Green. So you could do the whole
damn
podcast.
I had that. I shouldn't have given you the first pick.
I was gonna save it till the end, but I was like, Will's definitely gonna have this on his. So you could do a whole podcast on Draymond, Javante, JaMychal, Danny, Jalen, and Jeff, and then just like each pod, you just give an update on one of the Greens.
Yeah, you can go old school. You can go Orion Green. You can go Torian Green. You can, Orion's a deep cut, right? If you think Greg and I are not Celtics fans, if you know who Orion Green is, you're a real one. You're with us. We fuck with you. But yeah, that's a great one. That was very much the top of my list. And it's funny, like, because we have such similar brains, I was thinking, I was like, all right, that one's going to be pretty obvious, but I feel like we're both going to strategically wait to do it. So I'd even marked it in my mind. I was like, all right, it's like my second round pick. I'm going to go with that one. I think that's the right time.
I was going to hold off into it. I was like, no, Will's going to steal it. I'm going to be upset. I'm just going to do it. It's like when we were doing our fantasy draft and I had the second pick, right? We're in the 2 QB league. And I was like, you know what? I want Pat Mahomes. I want him on my team. I have the second pick in the draft. It's probably a little early for Mahomes. It didn't work out for me. But I'm just going to draft Pat Mahomes because I'd rather have him on my team than not have him on my team. And I'd rather have this on my idea list than your idea list.
Yep. Damn it. All right. That's a good pick. Good pick. All right. Here's my number one pick. I'm going to say grass. I like a nice cut grass. Like
okay.
That feeling when you go to, let's use Fenway Park as an example. When you're coming up and you're walking up from the concession stands or from that, the area, whatever, and you're kind of like hitting that precipice and you start to see just that beautiful patch of grass, just so perfectly manicured.
Lush,
like
verdant.
that feeling is so fucking cool. And so I don't know how we make it a podcast, but I would like to just talk about that because I want to feel that way all the time. That way is a lot better than the way I feel watching the team in green that we root for right now. So that's my number one pick. I'm going with grass.
That's a good point because, like, if we could somehow capture the essence of that feeling when you first step onto freshly mowed grass in the Northeast, right? It's very different when you're talking about the grass down here in Texas. The grass down here in Texas sucks, man. Every time I lay on the grass down here, I just have like rashes all over me. It's very abrasive. My skin doesn't really fuck with it. But if we could somehow capture the essence of how it feels to look at a Fenway Park freshly mown outfield, and then apply that to how we do things on this pod, or at least maybe even if the Celtics could somehow capture that in like the way that they play, then this would be a better podcast.
There you go. That's my first pick. All right. Second pick here. We're gonna snake this, right?
Yep.
Okay. Second pick. I'll go with the Green Bay Packers. I don't really necessarily like the Green Bay Packers, but they kind of just have they have a lot of stuff going on. They have a very popular podcast on SB Nation, and I know those guys do it full time and get paid for it and make enough to get paid for it just based on their podcast. So maybe we can edge our way into the Green Bay Packers market, and maybe that's just an avenue for us that we kind of go back and forth. Green with envy. Are we talking about the Celtics? Are we talking about the Packers? Tune in to find out. We capture two audiences in one. So that's me thinking, financially driven.
I like that. And then also, it's the Midwest. So you got all like great beer, great cheese. You could do whole segments on different beers and different cheeses that you're trying.
Talk about a lot of sausages.
Yeah. Talk about sausages. Yeah. It sounds pretty cool, man. And like Aaron Rodgers, he's great fodder for podcast conversation. So you could talk about all the stuff that he's bringing to the table with his craziness. I like it, man. And the Packers, although, the Patriots played them in the Super Bowl back in the day and there was all the Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers comparisons throughout the day, I think the fact that Tom Brady just completely, like career-wise, blew Aaron Rodgers out of the water and now there's really no comparison between the two quarterbacks, it'd be fun to do, just to try it out. We don't talk about the Patriots as much as we probably could on this podcast. But yeah, we could talk about the Packers. I'd be down for that.
All right. What's your number two pick?
My number two pick is the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
we could do all Ninja Turtle movies. We could do like a whole deep dive into The Secret of the Ooze because that is probably one of my favorite movies of all time. The scene in Secret of the Ooze where I forget which Ninja Turtle it is, but he's when they're fighting the foot and then he bumps into the dummy and then he starts like pushing the dummy back and he's just like, yeah, like that. Honestly, I didn't realize how much the Ninja Turtles played into pothead humor until like I dabbled in pothead culture for a while. And then when I watched that movie, like Super Stone one day, I was like, I now know why my cousins always found that really, really funny.
I love it. I have nothing to add. The Secret of the Ooze is a great movie. I don't think I knew for a while that like Vanilla Ice in the Go Ninja, Go. I didn't know that he was like an actual person. I thought it was just like a guy in the movie for a while. Like I don't think I knew it was Vanilla Ice. And then that movie just has like, you know, some great lines. Nums. You know what I mean? Like when they have baby. Yeah, exactly. So Secret of the Ooze, fantastic. Ninja Turtles, fantastic. Love that choice. I think it's your pick again here. Or was that your second pick?
No. Yeah, that was my second pick, but it's Snake, so it's back to me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with avocados. We could do
a whole bitch. You are taking my picks.
We could do a whole podcast on avocados, avocado culture. We could probably get Tom Brady onto the pod if we did a whole thing on avocados. I love avocados. I put them on my sandwiches to the point where my girlfriend is like, "Why do you love avocado so much? You put them on everything." I'm like, "You got to understand something. Growing up, I didn't even know what an avocado was." Exactly. Like I ate freaking Elio's pizza, boiled hot dogs, and SpaghettiOs and Frosted Flakes. Like that was pretty much my diet. So when I moved down here, I discovered a couple of things. One, I discovered that tacos were not just like tacos from Taco Bell and with like just shredded beef in a hard corn tortilla. I discovered that there are breakfast tacos. There's all these different types of tacos. There's fish tacos. There's, you know, all this other stuff. And then when I discovered how great avocados are, especially when you put them on a taco, I was like, I'm in for the rest of my life. I will eat avocados on everything.
I got nothing to add. It was on my list. It was a very good pick, very good value pick. Avocados are fucking awesome. Like to your point, we didn't know about this shit growing up. Like I don't even know if I seen an avocado like growing up. Like, I can't. I worked at Stop and Shop.
Dude.
I worked at a freaking supermarket. I literally cannot 100% confirm to you that Stop and Shop on Morrissey Boulevard has fucking avocados. I do not know. And I worked there off and on for like 8 years. So I'm totally with you. Love avocados. Luckily living with a Mexican, she uses avocados on everything. She uses them even more than I do. So we are very aligned in the avocado department. So come to my house, avocados waiting. We got them on deck. Very rarely do we never have avocados ready to go like that choice. All right. You touched on this with the Ninja Turtles for my next pick. I'm going to say weed. I like weed, you know, It was like to indulge every now and then, you know, it's fun. Last night we had a party for my girlfriend, Lorena, you know, got to smoke a little bit. We had a little fire pit going. Like it was a nice chill vibe. We got our guy, you know, Crow-worthy contributor, Ted Barry's working with a weed adjacent company. Shout out to Dutchy. Like, you know, so it's just, and you know what, there's always content there. You could do it as on the product on, you know, this new revolution of, you know, weed becoming legal in all these different states, what that means economically. You could just get high and have a topic and you can make that a podcast. So it's very versatile with how you want to take it. So I like weed as an option.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm me, like I'm not a huge weed smoker. There was a time in my life in which I was, but I really don't smoke weed anymore. I pretty much since I moved to Texas, I stopped smoking weed. Like I smoke it occasionally, maybe for like a little bit of creativity. If I'm just like stuck in some sort of like thought loop and I can't break it, I'll just take like one hit just to like switch things up. Maybe like before a show. But I remember one time down here, I was playing South by Southwest and I'm about to go on stage. And my boy Zach Black, who's the lead singer of Souls Extolled, he used to play Souls Extolled. He used to play guitar for me when I was RNA the Messenger. And he just like passed me a joint right before I went on stage. And I took way too big of a hit. And literally the entire time I was on stage, I was just thinking about what everybody in the crowd was thinking about watching me. And then 30 minutes is up and I'm like, holy shit, did I do my set? I literally don't remember saying any of the words the whole time I was performing. I was just in everybody else's brain thinking about what they were thinking about me, which is why I never smoke weed before I perform. If anything, I'll have like a sip of whiskey and then just rock it out from there. But like, absolutely not. Can't do that. But the fact that it's become so much more socially acceptable over the years, you don't have to really hide it as much. Yeah, it's cool, man. I could get down with at least a segment on weed.
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah,
I
it's
could do a
just
whole pod on weed, but
well, that's
yeah,
what I
a
mean.
segment
That's why I'm saying I think it's fascinating because you could take it in a couple different ways. There's so many different
for sure.
concepts you can do just with it alone, and like I've cut down considerably what I used to smoke. Throughout the years as I get older, and now I'm very selective when I choose to do it. I was saying last night when I took a trip during like kind of the middle of the pandemic to Colorado, drove out there just to like get away and do something, and so I bought some weed while I was there, and I've been using more edibles
Okay.
just because like they're just easier, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so I still have like some of the actual green that I bought like over a year ago, and it's like there's still a good amount because I smoke that infrequently these days. But I am fascinated by the industry of weed, and so
Yeah.
I love having a guy on the inside now to get the tips of what's actually going down and see how that all materializes because it is growing so rapidly. So that's one that I would have an interest in. Is it my pick again, or is it back to you at this
Yeah, I
point?
think it's your pick.
It's my
And this
pick,
is
yeah.
your
This is
fourth
my fourth
pick.
pick. Yep. So
Okay.
I'm gonna say money. Money is gonna be
Okay.
what
Yeah.
what I go with, and really this would just be from a curiosity standpoint because I'm very bad about knowing what to do with my money, knowing like, just simple like investment tricks or like what to do with my money. You know what I mean? So it
Yeah.
would be it would be from, almost a what do they call those? Like book for like money for dummies or whatever.
Hmm.
That would literally be kind of the concept of the podcast. So that could be a lane that I think we could pivot to and we could make interesting if we get the right guest, and it can be educational as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you could also just like make more connections, more inroads into people with more money than you. Like the whole point of the pod could be that we are jealous of them for having more money than us, and we're like asking them to tell us how they got their money. And then you
Exactly.
could get people, tell their stories of how they came up in the business world, how they make their money, how they save their money. I like it, man. That's a good one. I think that's a very obvious one that didn't even cross my mind. So shout out to you.
Got it, man. All right, you got
All
two
right, so
picks
now
here.
I get two in a row.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess we could do one since we're down here in Austin, Texas. We could do one on Austin FC if we
Thought
wanted to
about that.
pivot into a different sport, right? We could do soccer culture. We could bring in a bunch of really cool people from Austin or people who live in Austin that aren't actually from Austin, like the two of us. And we could just talk about all things like Austin FC adjacent. We could bring on
Yeah.
the guy that you say looks like me that
Yeah,
runs that
from the
runs the cheer
supporter section, yeah.
from the supporter section. Mexican Greg, I forget what his actual name is, but we could bring him on. And I think that'd just be fun just to like kind of learn about a new sport. And then we wouldn't have the high expectations that we have cheering for the Celtics and doing Celtics pods.
Mm.
Because pretty much, I mean, we talked about this recently. Since you came on as a co-host on this pod, everything has gone downhill. You came on like halfway through that Raptors series in the bubble, and pretty much since that time, it was like OG Onanobi hits the
Yep.
three-pointer like the day that you start as the co-host of the pod.
Nothing's ever been the same since, which I will say, it's a little selective considering you started it those series before. So it's not like
Yes,
there was this long window of success, but to be fair, they won a playoff series. So
true.
I guess I can't compete with that. But yeah, I mean maybe we'll have to just start calling it the Green with Envy curse. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. All right, what's your last pick?
And my last pick, oh man, I had it. What was it? My last pick. Oh, we could literally do a podcast called Green with Envy about jealousy. So we could just like have people come on and they could tell us like the craziest shit they've ever done because they were jealous. You could get like
Mm.
all these people that had like crazy relationship breakups and talk about like what they learned from that. You could talk about like every pod. You could just like bring up a moment in your life in which like jealousy consumed you and the crazy shit that you did. So I think it just like really right on the nose. Green with Envy. Why are we jealous as human beings? You could
I
bring on
like
like
it.
like neuroscientists to come talk about like the actual chemistry of the brain and where jealousy stems from and all that. I think it'd be really cool.
I like it. I was talking about this. I forget where I was, but we were talking about how like it's becoming more commonplace to see like polygamous relationships where you
Yeah,
have like relationships with multiple
polyamorous
people.
lifestyles.
Polyamorous.
Yeah,
That's what I was
yeah,
looking for. Yeah, and so I think that would be fascinating to have somebody on and just learn because I know I'm way too jealous of a person that I would just be like, I'm sorry, I can't. If that's a lifestyle, it's good for y'all. I can't do it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But I'm
yeah, for
fascinated
sure.
to learn more. So I like that concept. It kind of lines up to in a way of where I'm going with mine, just in the sense that like I'm sure a podcast like that probably exists.
Hmm.
I my last pick, there's another podcast about wrestling from a woman named Chelsea Green, which is also called Green with Envy. We're just going to talk about wrestling. We're just going to join her. That's gonna be our pivot.
Okay.
Every once in a while, we get tagged and stuff on Instagram or on Twitter, and it's actually for that podcast, not our podcast. So I figure, we can just have a meeting. Yo, Chelsea, what up? We kind of do it the same thing. Green with Envy. You stole our name, no big deal. Which actually she did. Her podcast came after ours, so check the facts, motherfucker. But I'm just saying, if we get a little tired, maybe we don't approach it with that nuance. But Chelsea, hit us up. We can do a combined Green with Envy where we hit wrestling and basketball, and then we create a friendship. We bring her into our friendship, and that's the new podcast format.
Yeah, and then we bring on all the basketball players or all the athletes with last names Green, and we just talk to them about their life and all their jealous moments and their time smoking weed.
Yep, and that's going to cross over all the different sports teams that we're talking about now. So I think we just found our new format. We're just going to take our list, and that's going to we've solved the problem, man. If the Celtics continue to suck, we're golden. Y'all are golden. Y'all are still going to get some content. We're going to make sure we put it out there. So we've got our list here. If the Celtics keep on fucking it up, we have backup plans. We have options, but we ran long just talking about some bullshit today, but it is what it is. Hopefully the Celtics will get back on track this week. As we talked about Milwaukee on Monday, maybe tonight, depending on when you're listening to this. We'll have the Warriors on Friday, Knicks on Saturday. So we'll be back at you later this week to give you kind of check in, see where we're at. Hopefully things have changed. Jaylen Brown coming back. That's positive.
Let's go, JB.
I'll leave you with that note. Greg, any final thoughts, and then send us on out of here like you always do.
Don't be jealous. Let your loved one do them. Just be open and communicate about what it is that they're doing. And as long as you're all cool with it, then, live that happy lifestyle. Polyamorous relationships are not for me. But hey, if they work for you, then it works for you. We're going to end today with a little Black Sheep Optimist. This one is called Tomorrow, because hopefully the Boston Celtics have a better tomorrow. Peace.
Peace.